Harden versus Giannis. MVP's got to be on the line, right? Here's the idea. They have to guard each other all game. Nobody can give help. Who says no?
Uh-oh. Okay.
Probably Harden to the defense. But let's do this anyway. Bob Ryan, Kevin Blackistone, Tim Calishaw, Ramona. Let's go.
I enjoyed it.
We'll get to it in a second. We start with the Nurkic injury, and we won't even show it so much as just look at everybody's reaction and hear everybody's reaction.
It made me sick to my stomach.
So the Blazers go into the playoffs now, the 4 seed right now, still have a shot at the 3. Ostensibly, they could fall to the 6 or 7 or maybe even 8. And they go in without their starting center and is 15 and 10 a game. First off, Ramona Shelburne, how does an injury like that affect the team?
I mean, it affects everyone in the building. I'll never forget the night I was there when Paul George broke his leg in Las Vegas. And, like, I mean, I just wanted to throw up. And I'm not even on the court. Those players that I talked to afterwards were distraught. I mean, and they just canceled the rest of the game, right? They just said, we can't even get out here anymore. And so I heard the guys on the Nets. I heard the Blazers. They just were sick to their stomach because it makes you feel your own mortality. Like that, it wasn't a bad play. He just landed wrong, and his legs snapped in half, and it was just devastating. And, you know, it's really going to hurt Portland because he is having a career year. They're having a great season. And, you know, when Nurkic is on the floor, they're plus 10.4 this year. When he's off the court, they're minus 5.0. I mean, he's a defensive force for them. And I know they got Enes Kanter as a buyout guy, but he is not the defensive player that Nurkic is.
Tim Calishaw?
Yeah, I mean, I think it hurts them a lot, obviously, for the reasons Ramona said, plus the fact that it happened so late in the year. They got to get going in the playoffs in 2 weeks. Sometimes when you have a couple of months, you have an Oladipo situation in Indiana, you kind of figure out how things work without a key guy, and you get rolling. I guess the only good part out of this, whatever they do with Zach Collins or Kanter, other teams won't really have seen a lot of it, what they're doing, you know, what they're doing to change their team. Hurts them a lot defensively. They're going to get a little lift here with C.J. McCollum back, and their whole team is about that backcourt, or it will be now for the playoffs. But it's going to be
right. They played well without players in the past. C.J. McCollum, as you just said, Calishaw. KB, what does Nurkic injury mean for Portland?
Well, it means that run that they've been on, 7 of their last 8, won a double overtime game, could come to a slide right now because he is so important for all the reasons that people pointed out. Fortunately for them, they did pick up Enes Kanter late, and so now they can lean on him. He's played extremely well for them in the minutes that he's had so far. He's a very capable player. They lose a little something on defense, but yeah, there's all of a sudden now they revert back to what they were, which is a very dominant guard team. And I don't want to sound callous here, but we have seen these horrific types of injuries before, and whether it's horrific or not, it takes the player out. Professional athletes, even college athletes, have a way to respond in these situations, and they are able to compartmentalize it. Remember, Louisville, I think, beat Duke when they lost Kevin Ware in that game. Shazier, when he went down for the Steelers, they still won, 2 or 3 games and went into the playoffs, so they're able to move on.
Bob Ryan, you have a view of what Portland's going through right now with Nurkic having that compound fracture and also looking forward towards the postseason?
Well, the mourning period is over. Last night was the night for the human reaction to it, the tragedy factor, the mortality factor for all these players, and the sadness and your compassion for your fallen teammate. That's over now because it's back to business. They have to figure out what we're going to do now. And the fact is that he was extremely important to both their offense and their defense. Yes, Kanter will come in. Kanter will get an opportunity to do what he does. He'll score points and get rebounds, but he's not the defensive player. I think, though, they'll pull together and have a surprisingly good run until the playoffs. When they get to a 7-game series, that's when they're going to miss him. With all those adjustments in this pick-and-roll world, they're going to miss Nurkic, and that's where they're going to miss him when they get to
Now you have the jockeying of teams. Somebody's going to have a matchup against Portland in the first round, where maybe that's a little bit more advantageous than being a higher-seeded team. We've been Horn. We'll move on. Tonight, Harden versus Giannis. Let's get into it. One thing standing in the way of maybe having a 73-63 Thompson versus Gervin type matchup, Bob Ryan, remember that from 30 years ago, is Milwaukee's beginning to rest Giannis a little bit as they kind of lock down the 1 seed. And here's Giannis. He said, a lot of other people are telling me to rest, and I'm going to keep having my mindset to play through the pain, push forward, and do whatever it takes for my team to win. So that's Giannis saying he's had a little bit of pain. He sat twice in the last week, but he's acknowledging some pain. So I'm wondering, what's the play here for the Bucks tonight? And can we please get an MVP showdown? Or it would behoove them maybe to pull Giannis back a bit, Bob.
Oh, I think that the MVP thing is inconsequential right now. If they're thinking about that, they've really got their misplaced priorities, okay? The thing is what's going to happen once again, in the playoffs. And he has to be saved from himself. He's young and impetuous, and he wants to help his team, and he thinks he's invincible because he's 20, whatever he is, 24, and then he can play through the pain. They've got to curb this enthusiasm of his with their calm, rational approach the rest of the way. And forget about this MVP nonsense. It has nothing to do with anything tonight.
Pretty deflating there, telling us to curb your enthusiasm, Bob. Stay with me, Bob. Come on. That was a good reference. I liked it. Ramona Shelburne.
That was good.
Anyway,
I set it up for you.
Thank you. Anyway, Ramona, we can get an MVP-type showdown tonight.
Look, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel did a straw poll of the likely MVP voters. They took 25 voters. 13 of them picked Giannis, 10 picked Harden, and 2 said it was too close to call. This is on. Yeah. This MVP showdown is on right now. And Giannis won the first one. He had 27 points, 20-something rebounds in the first game. If he wins both of those, I think it's case closed. I mean, I was already leaning Giannis, but if in the 2 head-to-head meetings, Giannis wins the game and dominates that matchup, I think it's his.
Tim Kalishaw, how about you?
I want those 2 voters who said it's too close to call to come on this show and see how sitting on a fence works.
Yeah, you tell me.
Someone with misplaced priorities. This is an MVP showdown. This is the night Giannis proves he's the real MVP. I'm not dismissing those occasional 60-point games from Harden. Those are impressive. But you look at what Giannis does at both ends of the floor, where he leads the league in defensive win shares, which I can't possibly explain to you in the time I have allotted. He's the best defensive player in the league, or one of them, and he's doing all kinds of things as a 25-10 guy. He's your guy.
We've got time, Tim. You want to get into the win share, please? Algorithmically speaking. Yes, please.
There's some metrics involved. There you go. Okay, now I can go to
yes, all right. Okay. Kevin Blackistone, though. Back to the issue at hand, though. Would it behoove the Bucks to kind of rein Giannis in a little bit tonight, or are we looking at that MVP showdown and you want to see it?
Well, unless there's an I in team all of a sudden, they've got to be more concerned about the future. This is about trying to win the NBA title. They've got a shot, and they've gone through a few injuries here of late, which have got to make them pretty nervous. They lost Brogdon, lost Nurkic, they lost Gasol, and now you've got a hobbled Giannis. You want a fully healthy Giannis going into the playoffs. Now, and the other thing is the MVP race is not about one guy versus another. It's about what they do over the course of the entire season. This isn't 1972 when JoJo White and Bob Lanier met in the one-on-one championship for the league. Come on, Bob knows about that. Ask Bob.
We were talking about this earlier.
So be careful about it.
We were talking about this earlier, and I just can't even imagine. Bob Lanier is heavy-footed a little bit for a one-on-one game, and JoJo White as well. Kalishaw, you have the last word?
Yeah, Mike Reardon won one of those one-on-one contests in the 70s, and I don't know how that happened either.
All right, Bob, I owe it to you to go back to you for the definitive answer on this. Maybe I'm wrong. I just know Lanier has the size 22 shoe, or whatever it is. I was assuming he wasn't moving around so fleet-footed.
Bob Lanier was a very light on his feet. I always had a picture of him as a ballerina elephant. I could picture him in a tutu taking a hook shot.
There you go. So I stand corrected happily. He's a hoofer, Tony. Bob Lanier was a hoofer. He can move on his feet. Anyone want to throw out next numbers here for tonight's game before we get too sideways? What were you expecting from Harden? What are you expecting from Giannis and the result, Shelburne?
Oh, I think Giannis wins this one. He goes 30 and 15. Harden will put up 30, 40 points, but I think the Bucks win the game.
Harden will score 42 points. Giannis' team will win the game by...
Blackistone?
I'll say Giannis will go 30 and 15 and carry his team.
Ryan?
Ditto on Kalishaw.
But not everybody else? Okay. Well, it sounded like everybody was pretty close. We'll move on. Something from last night I need to get your take on. Jazz intentionally fouling a Ray Spalding to stop Devin Booker from getting the ball and getting 60 on them in the last seconds. Fair or foul to intentionally foul a teammate to stop a player from a milestone, Tim?
Absolutely fair for the Jazz to say, Spalding, go get your foot on the free throw line. It's ridiculous that Devin Booker is even in the game. Why is he out there? His team is losing by 33 points. What does it mean to him? Devin Booker's a really good player, obviously. He scored 70 once. What is a 60-point game going to mean to him in a blowout? I don't understand what the Suns, nobody else on the Suns had double figures. How about letting Jimmer Fredette take a couple more shots?
Wow.
He was 1 for 10.
Listen to Kalishaw here. That is a fire take from Kalishaw. So you think the Jazz were in there right here to intentionally foul somebody else so Booker wouldn't get the ball? Blackistone, how about you?
Booker shouldn't be on the floor.
Oh, that was complete bovine excrement. Come on, the guy's on the court. He's playing the game. If you couldn't stop him from scoring 50-plus to that point, then you know what? Then why are you taking a cheap route to stop him from getting 60 and, I guess, tying a record that Chambers had on the team?
Bob Ryan?
Come on, stop.
In the old days, we'd have one word for this, Bush. Bush League tactic by Quinn Snyder.
Okay, all right. Kalishaw. Everybody's ganging up on Kalishaw here. How about you, Shelburne?
No, I thought it was weak. Like, if they were losing, okay, if the Jazz were losing this game, I could see that. But they were winning by 30. Just let the kids score. What I was impressed by in this game was just the percentage that Devin Booker scored. 59 of the Suns, 92 points. That's 64%. In the last 50 years, only one player has scored more percent of his team's points in a game. It was Kobe Bryant at 66 points.
Wow, all right. That was news I can use.
Unbelievable.
Kalishaw, you're alone on an island here. What are you doing with your life?
Breaks my heart that Bob Ryan thinks it's fine for Devin Booker to be out going for individual records. What are the Suns doing anyway? They get #1 picks all the time. They're not any good. When are they going to figure that out?
All right. We've been Horn taking a break here. Bob, I'm moving out here like Bob Lanier, you know, just very light on my feet.
That's
Whoa. Fire Sell is next. Stick around. He had a size 22 shoe. I just assumed he was plodding along.
No.
Around the Horn is brought to you by Corona Premier. Lower carbs, lower calories, higher expectations.
DeGrom or Noah Syndergaard? By the way, did you see the Mets' flight to Syracuse that Syndergaard was so upset about was delayed last night? 5 years, $137.5 million, and opt out on DeGrom's end early, an option late for the Mets. Buy or sell, Momo?
Yeah, I'm buying it. I don't think they had a choice here. I think if they didn't do this, you're going to spend the next 2 years talking about where they should trade him and where he's going to get the best value. 2 years from free agency, 30 years old, but he's low mileage. He's only thrown about 900 innings in his career, and so I think this is a great move for the credibility of the franchise.
TC?
It's a very good move. Pitchers are always a risk, but you like doing it better when you're at DeGrom's age than when your pitcher's much later on. Does start to tear up the free agency classes the next 2 years now. A lot of the guys who would have been out there already getting signed.
That is interesting, and maybe you can address that, KB, that we're seeing players now sign years, Trout and DeGrom, before they even get to free agency, almost to avoid those 3 months where you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, not only the 3 months where you don't know, but maybe getting spooked by some of these deals that didn't happen, that were supposed to happen, right? So good for the Mets. Credibility, as was said, and he's the face of the franchise right now.
And that's precisely what Mike Trout said, you know, getting spooked. Bob Ryan, how about you?
Totally buy it. I think this was a litmus test for the new GM. Of course, it was the agent, in question. Because Syndergaard, among others, felt that they had to do right by this guy, and I think that is a good step, and it sends the team with the right frame of mind into the season.
Thinking about baseball spending, I'm seeing a report that $2 billion has been spent by teams in the last month here, and I'm reading that average salary has gone down there, and I'm like, hey, what do you want from me? But right now, 3 teams over $200 million in payroll and 8 teams under $100 million in payroll. The Players Union says that's bad. Tim, how bad is that for competitive integrity of sport?
I think it's actually a little bit more natural, and I don't know how you tell teams that you can't do what they, to some extent, the Cubs, Astros, and Royals all did by tearing their teams down to nothing and then building them back up and winning World Series in the last decade.
KB?
Yeah, it's a copycat league, like we like to say, but the problem here is that it also reminds that too many teams are just making too much money, and they're not necessarily incentivized to win right now. We see that certainly in the NFL, where 2/3 of the revenues are coming really from the league. So that is a concern going forward.
Bob Ryan?
Nobody likes this trend where the middle-class guys are getting squeezed out and they're going in favor of a lot younger players who are very easier to control and all that stuff. But let me tell you something. The history of baseball is that there's always dregs, all right? The Washington Senators won in 1933 and never contended again until they left in 1961.
There was a great slogan there, wasn't it, Bob? It was first in Washington.
That was first in war, first in peace, last in the American League. I was raised on that.
So good. That's gold. We got to bring those back. That is really gold. And Shelbourne, the idea here on spending, is it bad for the integrity of the game?
I think it's bad for the integrity of the game, but as KB said, they're not incentivized to win. What this is a market correction, because you have a bunch of GMs and front offices now who are paid a lot of money with their Ivy League educations to say, players aren't worth it to invest all this money right now. They're not worth it to give these big, long contracts because it doesn't necessarily translate into wins. And I think this is a players' union that needs to go to the owners, and they need to do a new collective bargaining agreement and scrap the whole system here, because it's not going to get better by whining about it.
We'll move on. Buy or sell 3, Sean Payton on the NFL Network.
Do you think going into the 2019 season there will be any type of legislation or even changes so we don't have this type of situation
Well,
again?
it's not. Then ownership saying they're comfortable with what happened a year ago.
Kevin, buy or sell?
Well, you know what? I'm going to buy that he's very concerned about it, but I'm going to sell whatever it is they're going to come out with to solve that situation. I don't know what you can do. I will say this. For pass interference, let's not forget, the CFL has had a pass interference challenge for about 5 years now.
Yep.
They seem to get it right up there, and everybody seems to like it. Maybe they ought to look north for a
Bob
solution.
Ryan?
I think that from the minute that they introduced this technology, it's been a make it up as you go along thing as we figure out what works and what doesn't work. And they're going to have to come to grips with the fact that they cannot allow a thing like that to happen last year. Very simply, you should challenge a non-call. That's simple.
Shelbourne?
Look, I think we get to the stage every year where there's one play or one call that affects a very important playoff game that then everyone looks at and says, we've got to do something to make sure that never happens again. I think the play at the end of the Saints-Rams game is that call, and whatever they do, they've got to do it. But I don't know if it's going to fix anything, but I all of us looking at that said, that was a pass interference call, and they got to make sure that never happens again.
The only way to eventually fix this, and they may get this right, they're getting closer, is to let the coaches use their challenges. Not get more challenges, but use what they have on anything they want. If there is no flag thrown, Sean Payton should be able to say, look at that again, that is an obvious pass interference. I think they will get there. Maybe this year.
All panelists have a flag that they can throw to challenge. Do TC and Bob Ryan use their flag today?
34 used to get you a win.
I'll take that as a no. All right, Shelbourne and Blackistone. This is one-on-one with the MVP on the line. In Showdown next. Fran Beliebe. You got to love Fran Beliebe.
Hey.
Look at these dunks. Grade these dunks, Ramona.
I mean, those are legit dunks. By the way, she's going to Stanford. I'm just going to say that. I texted with Candace Parker, and she said she was trying to go to the dunk contest because she's the last woman to win it at the McDonald's All-American game. And I go, she seems legit. She goes, she's only 6'1" doing that.
Wow, well, that's impressive, 6'1", but what's more impressive, the goggles, baby. I even got some goggles like that when I play. I love that style. Elliot Perry, just think of all the great goggle wearers in the NBA.
Yeah. No, I'm here for the goggles. I'll give you a point for that, KB. But I believe I texted Candace Parker. I believe that's some research and reporting.
Come on.
How great has Candace Parker been on the call of these games, too, during the broadcast of the tournament? We'll move on. Showdown 2. Big Gator. Big Gator on a golf course. Big Gator on a golf course playing through. KB, do you finish your round?
Go Gators. Of course you finished your round. I grew up with Gary Justice, who went on to become a putt-putt champion. he would have just looked at that gator, figured out the angle, right off the tail, right into the cup. Come on.
No, look, I'm a Billions fan, right? So on the season opener this year, Paul Giamatti's character is passing around a park anywhere pass. I think that gator has a park anywhere pass, right? When you're that big.
Hey, you want to putt-putt? Go through the mouth of the gator, not off the tail, KB. Ramona Shelburne, 30 seconds of FaceTime.
All right. Well, Russell Turner is the coach at UC Irvine, and he's a guy whose name has been thrown out there as somebody who might get a big job after leading the Anteaters to a big victory in the NCAA tournament, except that he goes and admits to calling Louis King from Oregon Louis Queen all game, as if this was some sort of insult that was going to hurt his feelings. No, what that is a derogatory, homophobic comment that is 8 years old instead of 48 years old. Russell Turner used to work for the Golden State Warriors, who, as we all know, are light years ahead. This is light years behind. I cannot believe we're even having this conversation about a dumb insult like that.
Thank you for bringing it up. I think you gave him too much credit because he has not even admitted to this. He tried to call it chess piece, and I was calling him the queen. There's ways to use this, and this is not it. Russell Turner, mute for you.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Frank Isola. As you might know me, Phil and Frank.